Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Discuss with Meg Duke. I am Meg Duke, of course, and today I'm elated to have our guest with us, Kate Cleveland. Kate is a lover, eternal optimist, and habitual overthinker, a woman after my own heart. Her titles include wife, mother to a 2-year-old son, doctor of physical therapy, and postpartum doula. She received her postpartum doula certification from the Doula Training International and a doctor of physical therapy degree from Emory University in 2011. She is a certified pregnancy and postpartum corrective exercise specialist, which I'm very excited to talk more about. She provides compassionate, personalized, evidence-based support for families as they transition into parenthood. She offers physical therapy services for both mother and baby, matrescence coaching to help mamas thrive in their new identities, and postpartum doula services. She supports mothers during their pregnancies, helps them prepare for birth, and support them in their recovery. She practices in Houston, Texas, but can see coaching clients worldwide, and her practice is inclusive and LGBTQ plus affirming. Kate, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Delighted. I am so excited. So the first question I'm going to ask is, how do we know each other?
Yeah, well, we met virtually last week, and neither one of us could actually remember how we got connected. So
yes,
yeah,
I'm gonna take all the blame for that because somebody told me to reach out to you and said like, hey, reach out to Kate. She's working in the same space and And I actually went through my text threads. I went through my Facebook professional page. I tried to find it. I cannot find the person. So whoever is listening, thank you. And also please shoot me a text because I'd like to let Kate know how we got to know each other. So, but yeah, what a wonderful blessing to have so many people who are willing to chat and collaborate with us that it can get lost, right?
Yes. I definitely love this motherhood community virtually, worldwide, in the birth space, because I feel like everyone is very collaborative and wants to community build. That's definitely something we have in common.
Yes, I love that. I actually did a podcast a couple of weeks ago about building an abundance mindset. And instead of thinking of it as scarcity of like, well, if you're my client, then if you take this client, then I don't get that client. And obviously that doesn't work for us because we don't do the same thing. We can share clients, but I think it's really great when even like mutual therapists are able to just be like, look, we're all trying to help people. We're all trying to support parents. We're all trying to get through this crazy thing we call life. How can we support each other in being the best professionals possible? How can we support each other from a place, from a professional place, but also personally, because it's a tough but rewarding industry that we've chosen. It's really great to be able to have that space.
Yes, I agree. And I love that too, because I always say there is no competition. There's enough to go around.
Yes.
So, I mean, you're going to find, your perfect ideal clients. And, if I meet someone and you're a better fit, I'm happy to share the love in the community for sure.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yes. So I thought we would start out with a little, I'm such a nerd, defining the word, because I know it's been interesting for me as I've begun niching into perinatal mental health, that people are like, no one says perinatal. We don't know that. I'm like, right. But like the industry, we're trying to get it to be perinatal. It's not just postpartum. It's not just you popped out a baby, give me 6 weeks and then you're fine. It's the whole spectrum of trying to get pregnant, of fertility issues, of being pregnant, of, yes, of course, those 6 weeks right after, and then even further on, perinatal specialties. So in that regard, I think that's really important that I've been trying to let the family know what that means. But I love matrescence, right? I remember you mentioned that last week, and I was like, that's something that I feel like I don't think a lot of people outside of the industry know either. And so I was just going to do a quick little, if you've never heard the term, it's just defined as the process of becoming a mother, physical, psychological, emotional, all of the changes that come on as you're beginning and within that period. And I was also curious, obviously your own thought, but I did want to just like pitch the definition out there.
Yes, I love that you're highlighting this, because I discovered this term actually on maternity leave. When I was Googling things, why did no one tell me all
Yeah.
of the above. And I ran across Dr. Alexandra Sachs' work and her TED Talk. And so she actually introduced me to the matrescence term, and it's actually it's considered to be a developmental milestone now, I think, in the industry, just similar to adolescence. And so I actually ordered her book called What No One Tells You. And it was really one of the things that saved me during the fourth trimester. So during the first 3 months of my son's life, I read that book and I felt so seen and validated. And I was kind of angry, like, why does no one talk about this? And I made it my mission right then and there to start kind of sharing the things that people are too ashamed, I think, to talk about, but that are important to share so that we can prepare the next generation of mothers. Because I really feel like knowledge is power, and we don't have to share, with a fear-based intention. We can share with love and with just encouragement and support. And yeah, that's kind of where the matrescence coaching idea began, when I had like a 2-week-old and I was trying to navigate that transition. I don't know myself. I don't know this new identity. I don't feel like myself. I went to my 6-week checkup, and of course I was sobbing the whole time because I hadn't slept in 6 weeks. And my OB asked me if I had felt like myself. And I just started crying even more because I was like, I don't. And I thought I would. I just thought I would be the same person and just have this adorable baby. And I feel like a completely different person with different capacity for things. And 2.5 years, almost 3 years later, I still don't feel like the person pre-baby.
Right.
And it turns out that's very common. It's just not talked about. And so that's where my coaching passion was really ignited. I really want to empower women to kind of discover their new identities and the beauty in that.
Absolutely. I know it is interesting. I also have done another podcast episode already about motherhood and identity with a fellow clinical social worker. And we talked about, and she's also a mother herself. And we talked about that of like, do you feel like yourself? I mean, am I supposed to feel like 23-year-old single Meg who doesn't have children and like responsibilities and runs around New York? And, like, am I supposed to ever feel like that again? And is that a bad thing that I don't? And I think at the core, my soul at the core, getting back to feeling like myself, yes, but not necessarily feeling like the same person. I think those are two different things that I don't necessarily know the best way to articulate that, but I do think that those are separate. And you're right. I wrote down, I'm going to put that in the show notes, What No One Tells You. I'll make sure to add that, as well as how people can contact you, which I will bother you about later. But yeah, and I think the other thing that frustrates me, in addition to What No One Tells You, I liked how you mentioned of like hearing about it in a safe and respectful way, is the thing that drives me a little crazy, is that people are always like, just wait. Like,
yeah, that's not helpful. Can we all just not do that anymore?
Absolutely. Like, I think that those words should never be used unless it's like, oh my gosh, my little one just rolled over. Oh my gosh, just wait till they sit up. It's going to be, like, okay, if you're saying it in a positive way, like, oh my gosh, they're babbling. Oh my gosh, just wait until they actually call you mama for the first, like, It's never in that vein. It is never in that energy. It's always like, oh, I wasn't walking into a business meeting and realized I had poop on myself. Oh, just wait until, or it's like, or, this, we're in the 4-month sleep regression. Oh, just wait till they start teething. And it's like,
yes. I've noticed a common thread with the women and the parents that do unintentionally fearmonger. And the common thread seems to be that they typically did not suffer and struggle through perinatal mental health disorders, because it's kind of this sense of knowing when you meet another mom that also struggled with severe anxiety, or even any type of anxiety, depression, the psychosis, the hallucinations, like when you get going down your experience with perinatal mental health during pregnancy and then postpartum, or extreme sleep deprivation because of a high needs baby, or any type of challenges with leaking, pelvic floor pain, postpartum infections, like any type of challenge that you've encountered that makes bliss and newborn bliss and enjoying snuggles seemingly impossible. If you meet someone that has encountered those struggles, they will never say,
right,
just wait. They will say, joy is coming.
Right.
Because after living through my experience with the sleep deprivation extreme, like I couldn't sleep even when my baby was sleeping. And now I know that that's like the first indicator, like, okay, there's going to be some anxiety that's going to get worse here, because I couldn't sleep even when I had the chance. And so, just living through that experience, I know that I forgot what I was even, my brain just took me back to that experience. But just living through that experience, I never tell moms, just wait.
Yes.
Just let me see, or it's gonna, I remember now. So my experience is so tainted that I was like, maybe everyone goes through these horrific experiences. They just have so much shame surrounding it that they don't feel comfortable sharing it. And society puts so much pressure on women to be perfect and to be enjoying every moment, that they post all these beautiful snuggle pictures and, isn't this, I just love being a mom, and I just, my 2-day-old is my best friend. And I'm like, I don't feel that way. Like something is wrong with me, because you start comparing. I don't feel this intense connection with my 2-day-old that's just eating and sleeping and pooping.
Right.
And
newborns are boring. Okay. Hot take. I don't
enjoy the newborn phase. And so now I know, no, there actually are some people that don't struggle with perinatal mental health. There are some babies that come out and are good sleepers.
Yes.
And moms thrive in that first 4th trimester period. So there is a small subset of women that thrive during the first 3 months. And, I have people in my family that are thriving during that period. And it's glorious for me to see that. But because this is what I do, and I help the moms that feel like they're drowning.
Right.
My perspective is a little skewed. And so I just like to tell people, like, you might get this dream angel baby, and you might have this easy, breezy postpartum recovery. But if you don't, let's put some people and some contacts on your speed dial so that you don't have to spend your energy researching.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what you and I had talked about. So I'm training to do postpartum support international coordinator role, which is a volunteer position where literally it's not a crisis line. They are building one, which is amazing. But it's like a warm line of, I'm feeling some kind of way. I don't even know what I need. I don't know what services are available. Let me call this number. And that person is someone who's going to be able to say, yes, let me hook you up with da-da-da and blah, blah, blah. And here are some services that are available. Like, did people even know that physical therapy and matrescence went together, and the 4th trimester and pregnancy and all of that? Like, some people wouldn't even contemplate that that's an issue. I think some people definitely feel the need to suffer in silence, like you said, with the shame and the pressure society puts on, especially with social media these days, and that you just have to figure it out on your own. And I'm glad also too, you mentioned postpartum anxiety, because actually, longitudinal studies show that postpartum anxiety is actually more common than postpartum depression, but we talk about postpartum depression. So then that anxiety, like you mentioned, not being able to sleep while your child is sleeping, which of course everyone makes the conversation of sleep while they're sleeping. And it's like, first of all, I got 6 loads of laundry, I got whatever. But even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they're sleeping and you are staying up to make sure they're breathing or whatever it is, that's, the racing thought that you have, that is so common. And so it's nice to hear people who are willing to step up more and talk about it to decrease the shame and the pressure that we have put on for it. But it's a lot.
Yeah. And a lot of us, I knew about postpartum. I still remember my husband asking me, like maybe 2 weeks before the baby came, you're not going to be one of those moms that deals with postpartum depression, right? And I was like, no, I feel fantastic, because, I've lived with generalized anxiety disorder my whole life, but
Uh-huh.
like for some reason, the pregnancy hormones made me feel glorious. Like
Oh, wow.
I did not struggle with anxiety. I had zero panic attacks. I was not depressed at all. I was very level. And as soon as those hormones dropped, when I, had delivered my son, it was like the house was on fire.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I knew we had even talked about it. And he's like, do you think that you need to get a counselor beforehand just in case? And I was like, no. The social worker came in the day he was born and was like, you have anxiety history. Like, how are you feeling? And I was still in that oxytocin bliss bubble.
Yes.
And my baby was still heavily sedated from an epidural. He
Uh-huh.
didn't make a peep and he was sleeping all night. And I was like, this is easy. Like, I
Yeah,
can't
good.
wait. And then we get home, and the first intrusive thought I had was sitting on the toilet, dealing with, postpartum bleeding issues,
Yes.
envisioning the sound machine was going to have an electrical fire and explode underneath his crib.
Wow.
And I just could not. And so I had to rush to go check,
Mhm.
and then I had to move it. And literally, I don't remember anything other than like all of my intrusive thoughts the whole 4 months, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now I like to prepare moms, like these are the red flags. So
Mhm.
maybe you can kind of talk about that a little bit as a licensed counselor. What are some of the red flags that moms can look for? And when is it time to not push through? When is it time to seek help or to seek someone that can prescribe medicine?
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's such a great thing to look at. And I think before I go into that is to talk about a lot of people who are not really aware, educated on the topic, or have asked about it think, oh, it's like when you're pregnant, or you're like, it's like when you have your period, right? That cycle of hormones, and oh, I have my PMS and da da da. And it's like, no, it is exponentially different popping a human out, or in my case, Ziploc bagging a human out of you. Like, it is exponentially different, and the level of hormones that come and drop. Um and so it is one of those things that my first suggestion would be, if you have a thought that you think you might need help, do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Give a call, shoot me a DM on Instagram. Even I will help point you in the direction of somewhere. Call your postpartum support international coordinator. Just Google postpartum support international, find your state. There is a coordinator who can get back to you within 24 hours. That is first and foremost. Absolutely. If you even have a thought about it, I don't know. I know there are some arguments about this, and I respect people's different opinions, but for me, I genuinely think that everybody would benefit from having a therapist. And I know that comes from a place of privilege, because not everyone has insurance, not everyone has disposable income, and not everyone has time. So I'm owning that, and I'm aware of it. But like, in a perfect world, haha, I do genuinely believe that everyone could use a therapist. And I think no more so than a person who has just given birth to another human being, and also their partners too. I mean, that's a huge life change, and it's very difficult to go from whether or not you doted on your pregnant partner, I don't know, but you doting on your pregnant partner and taking care of that person, and then all of a sudden they've popped out this baby, and now their entire focus is on this other human life, and your whole relationship has changed. All of that, I think those people also, partners, if you think you might
Yeah.
need a therapist, get one,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I just, all of that to say, like, that is the first and last bit is, if there's anything that you think that might be beneficial for you, and I think the answer is yes, everyone could, then please look into that. But of course, obviously it's those extreme mood swings, right? So recognizing when you're feeling very depressed or very anxious, we're all going to have that because of that massive hormone shift. But if you feel like it's becoming something that is unmanageable, that's
Mhm.
very important to make sure that's one thing. The excessive crying, again, you can watch a Pringles commercial and start crying because it was really cute how, grandpa, whatever, I don't know. And I don't know why Pringles popped into my mind, because I can't tell you the last time I had Pringles, but that's what popped into my mind. So here we are. And that's normal. Again, that is within the normal limits of having given birth. So I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I cried. There's nothing necessarily, I'm not diagnosing anybody right now, but here are some ideas. But if it's constant and what you would consider to be excessive, I'm not much of a crier, but if I were to start crying more, okay, well, I've just had given birth, that's fine. But then when I really realize I just can't stop crying, that's definitely something to be looking out for. They talk about like bonding with your baby. And I already said it. I'm going to be really honest. I love my babies. I think they're wonderful. They're both obviously much older now, but like the newborn stage for me is boring. They don't smile at you. They don't interact with you. Like bonding, I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, you're not bonding with your baby, you've got postpartum depression. That is not what I'm saying. I feel like I'm going to have that caveat after every single one, but I don't want anybody to take this and run with it and be like, Meg's just diagnosed me. But continual issues with bonding, longer term, something that you feel is outside of what you would expect to have been normal. But even still, like I said, if it's your first baby, how would you know? Right? Like I think we're all instructed by the world that you pop this baby out, they put the baby on your chest and magically, oh, this is the most magical human being I've ever seen in my life. And that may not be the case for you.
Yes. And I'm glad we're talking about this because, it was magical when they first put him on my chest. And that was one of the best moments of my life because it's like you go through so much to get to that point.
Yes.
But then once we got home, there's no interaction for 7-8 weeks, none. Yeah. And it's just so much pouring in. It's a very one-sided relationship.
Yes. And of course, as it should be, it's a baby and it's our job to take care of them. But like when you get those smiles.
Oh, it changes. Yeah. For me, at around 7-8 weeks, when he started smiling intentionally, I was like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. I feel something.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not much of a crier. I mostly cry when I'm so furious. I want to break something, which I'm not the person who breaks things, but you know what I'm saying? Like I don't really cry very often. And when my firstborn cried, it was about 5 or 6 weeks. He cried, or he looked me in my eyeballs and smiled. I started crying just like, and I remember the moment so well. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this human being recognizes me, this human being that I have carried and fought for and have been taken care of and has been keeping me up forever. And I'm exhausted and won't let me put him down during maternity leave, but he knows who I am. And I have just made him happy. Yeah. It was a very big moment for me. Like I said, I cried. And then when my daughter did it, I can't remember. Now I'm feeling terrible. I think he did it at 6 and she did it at like 5 because I remember hers was a little earlier. And again, I didn't full on cry like I did with him, but I like the tears were like, you could feel the tear jerker. Right. And I was just like, and these tears were falling down. I was like, this is amazing. And so I think that you don't have to have that response. Perhaps you already felt that bond before your child smiled at you. It's one of those things in combination with a lot of other things. If you continuously still don't feel like you've been bonding with the baby, is something that could be helpful to have somebody to talk to.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's another thing that I do as a part of my postpartum doula offerings. And so if you are in that state where you're like, I know I need a therapist, but I'm so overwhelmed. I think we might have talked about Brene Brown, but I just started reading her Atlas of the Heart book. That's another book you could put in the show notes.
I'm going to write it down.
Talks about overwhelm and the state of overwhelm. And sometimes, as new moms, we find ourselves in that state where we feel, and she just defines it as the state that you feel like you're not able to cope. You may be functional and coping, but your perception is that you're not coping well.
Yes.
And, when someone asks, do you need a therapist or my friends were like nudging me, why don't you get a therapist? And I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't even research therapists.
Thank you for saying that, because I feel like I've been saying like, oh yeah, give postpartum support. Yes, that's exactly right. When you feel so frozen by options, so frozen by what the next thing is, absolutely. And that is when hopefully you've got somebody, a partner, a mother, a sister, a brother, a college roommate, somebody who you can just be like, if I may quickly be tangential, but not because you brought it up, Overwhelm, right? So I was listening to Brene Brown on Glennon Doyle's podcast with Abby Wambach and sister. So we're going to talk about being blown, which is what her expression was about overwhelm. And Brene in the podcast, which you have heard, but I'm sharing for the family, was describing working at, I think she was at Papacito's, one of the Pappas brothers restaurants down in Houston. So for my Houstonians, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, they own a chain of a bunch of very fancy and very important restaurants all around. So all around Houston. So, and she worked there, and they had something where you would say, I'm blown. And that was literally like what is it? The two levels, there was like in the weeds, I'm in the weeds. And so if you ran back to the back and said, I'm in the weeds when she was a server, then somebody would like, I'm in the weeds. Kate, I need you to run this salad. So-and-so, I need you to put this in. Hey, so-and-so else, can you check and make sure that table 7's blah, 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 whatever. I'm not going to repeat the whole thing. And also I haven't been a server for very long. So my quick recall on that is bad, but you know what I'm saying? I'm in the weeds. Like I need help. Right. And then the next thing is, hopefully you don't get there, but if you do, is being blown. I'm blown. Like, and then everyone just like takes all of your stuff and you just leave. Like you're blown. That's it. I'm overwhelmed. And I thought it was really interesting because Brene mentioned, I'm basically just recapping the podcast. Y'all go listen to it. She'll explain it much better than I did, but I'm obsessed. Brene talked about how after she went in and said she was blown and everyone just didn't, like no one talks, you just take it and go. Like I got your stuff, you walk at the back and go. And she was talking about driving home from her shift after having just said she was blown, and she lit a cigarette, but then she dropped the cigarette and her pants were catching on fire and something, and you know, like all of these other things that were much worse than what she had just said that she was blown about. And she was like, okay, so I guess it really wasn't overwhelmed when I said I was overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. Now I'm overwhelmed. So anyway, that was a tangent. I apologize. You know, being a server doesn't have anything to do with, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't have anything to do, you could be a server and a parent as well. But I thought that was really interesting that you brought up the topic of overwhelm, and you're so right. And so I want to step back what I had said earlier about like you feeling like you have, like you parent should call, you know, PSI, or you should, you know, go on Psychology Today and find a therapist in your area or virtual, or, you know, just even being able to put up your hand and saying, I'm blown.
Yeah.
And you don't have to use that example, that language, but whatever your expression for I'm blown.
Yes. And, you know, having maybe you don't have a postpartum doula that's on your team ahead of time. Maybe that, like you said, that is a mother-in-law, sister. For me, it was one of my closest friends, Haley. She is a really big therapy, mental health advocate, and always has been for me. And she reached out to me and was like, Katie, you're not okay. It's time. Like, have you considered this? And I told her, you know, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't even research it right now.
Yeah,
I don't have the time or the capacity. Yes. And I thank her so much to this day, because she put a spreadsheet of counselors together and their copays and whether they took my insurance and, you know, what their specialty was. And she called all of them and she negotiated rates on my behalf because she knew I didn't have disposable income. And she negotiated rates with this out-of-network provider to get them down to a rate that I could afford.
So a sliding scale. Yeah.
She scheduled my first appointment for me. And I've been seeing that therapist now for 2 years on a weekly basis. And it's been life-changing. And so, you know, you don't necessarily have to be the one to do it, but if you have someone that you can trust that has the capacity from sleeping 8 hours, that can do that for you, you know, ask them. And it's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of your ability to be a good mom. It's
so true.
Yeah. And so I also wanted to talk about, you know, the ability to have the resources and the funds to afford therapy, because I've noticed in Houston, access is a huge barrier. You know, say that there's maybe 5 perinatal mental health specialists in Houston. They all take insurance. There's a 6-month wait. You know, that's not going to work for an emergency mood disorder.
That's right.
Then you go to the next step, you know, finding a direct access out-of-network provider that's cash-based. So usually there's much more availability. You can get in quicker, but you know, a lot of times it's expensive. It's more expensive. but the value of being able to access them immediately is also a game changer. But I wanted to kind of talk about, let's set the precedent that you're going to need that at the baby shower. And
I just got chills. I just got chills. Amazing.
Instead
Yes.
of asking for 27 million onesies and pacifiers and
I'm writing that
outfits
down.
that your baby will never use,
Yes.
ask your family and your friends, hey, can, instead of diapers, wipes, cute toys, plastic things that are going to be thrown in the landfill, how about you guys come together and put a mental health fund, and if I
Chills.
don't need it, I use it for postpartum doula.
Yeah.
If I don't need that, I use it for a massage, something to center the mother.
Yes. All the chills. I literally have all the chills. What a genius idea.
Why aren't we doing this? Because mothers, when you have a baby mother, the mother is discarded in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
We do not center the mother. And so my big mission in my work is to center the mother, because if moms are well, babies are well, families are well, our community, our earth, everything is well.
Right.
If the mother is the center, or if you're, to be non-binary, the birthing parent.
Yes. Yeah. And I always try to make sure that I say that too. And I totally skip that. Kate and I both identify as women. So when we say mom, mama, mother, that's our truth, but certainly birth parent,
yes.
Adoption is love, adoption is family, adoption is real. So if you've got the parent, that is what we're trying to talk about. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes.
For sure.
And so, and that brings me to thinking about, the baby's temperament, and the baby, whether the baby's happy and whether the baby's well adjusted. It's like, so much of that studies are showing is based on mom's mood and mom's adjustment. And does mom smile and at the baby? Is mom or birthing parent playing with baby, interaction, singing, having joyful interactions? And no, you're not, if you're really drowning in perinatal mood disorders. You literally physically cannot. And so, and it's also so much pressure on the birthing person to be that, and so it's sometimes, if you're struggling, it's so forced and it takes so much energy to, I was like playing music and trying to sing and like trying to pretend like I was joyful, and I felt nothing, and so my only regret looking back is not getting help sooner. And so I'm a huge advocate, like, hey, if you can't afford it, we can always negotiate. There's always, I know I provide discounts, like a certain number of discounts per month.
Sure.
If someone can't afford my services, I find someone in the community that they can afford, I connect them with someone. So, and I know most of us have a heart for that in this industry. And so I just don't want there to be, a shame barrier. And I don't want there to be a resource barrier, because financial resource barrier, because your well-being as the matriarch of your family is so crucial, so crucial to your entire family and your entire community.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important. And I appreciate that. And absolutely. So if someone gets in touch with me and they'll be like, hey, do you take my insurance? And I need to use it. And if I don't take their insurance, then I always say, like, check Psychology Today, filter by people who do, call the number on the back of your insurance card, and see if they will do it. And then if not, let's you and I will walk you through it as well. And then of course, like we were talking about, what community mental health resources are available. I know in Houston, there's the Harris Center, Legacy Community Health. And then of course, that's very specific to Houston. So those of you who are listening and, Maria out in Northern Ireland, that's not going to help her, but anyway, it's important, that we are aware of the privilege that a lot of us have by having that access, and then find that, but there are resources available in certain ways, and making sure that we are able to do that. Absolutely. So I did want to talk about just a couple more, since you had asked a couple of more, like kind of the air quotes, well, not air quotes, the diagnostic criteria of postpartum depression. But again, I'm not diagnosing anybody, but I'm just, kind of rounding out the topic, is talking about, how is your appetite? And I think that's something that's very difficult, because, for those of you who are breastfeeding, chest feeding humans, my appetite is through the roof constantly. I am hungrier now than I was when I was pregnant. Because you're sucking out a lot of nutrients out of your body, right? And so that's something, but so that's something that can't even necessarily be a barometer, but it is something to keep an eye out for, because your health and nutrition is important, whether or not you've chosen to breastfeed and chest feed, because obviously that what you put in your body helps fuel you. And so that is something to keep in mind as well. Insomnia is such a funny one to laugh at, because my baby doesn't sleep unless I'm holding the baby. So how am I supposed to be sleeping? So, but that is something what you mentioned, Kate, about even when your baby was sleeping, you were not able to, you had these intrusive thoughts that were coming to you. And so that those small peak moments that you actually find yourself being able to put your head on a pillow of some sort somewhere, if you're not able to sleep, then that could be a telltale sign that maybe there's a little more something going on. Then, and those intrusive thoughts, like you said, are very important to pay attention to as well. So again, I wanted to start and finish that very long. We went off on a lot of different topics, but is that if you think you need help, then please, either if you have the capacity to Google it yourself or to look up, that's great. If you don't, text your Haley and say I'm blown, and let Haley be your mouthpiece. God bless Haley, by the way. We all need a Haley in our life, right? Absolutely. Yes. So yeah, I think those are the kind of things that would be very helpful for people to look out for when doing that. Yeah. So what else?
There's so much. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I know. I said this to you when we talked about doing it. I was like, I feel like we're going to have like a 6-parter.
Easily. Yeah. It's just something, this topic I'm so passionate about, just because, I was in this state of shock, and still kind of am sometimes when, why didn't anyone tell me? Like, why are we not talking about this? Like, we have access to all this information now. We can Google anything. We have social media. We feel like we're really deeply connected to so many people via social, but we're actually so disconnected because we're only sharing the highlights.
Yeah.
And, when I was blown and overwhelmed and drowning in, all of these struggles postpartum, I was sharing them online because I was like, I want people to know that this is also the side of postpartum. We're starting to see that more online with, women wearing their pad postpartum and having their, this like snapback culture is non-existent, and the pressure to bounce back and the pressure to be fully made up day one is like very unrealistic. And, we're starting to get rid of some of that smoke and mirrors of everything is supposed to be blissful all the time, but it's still, sometimes I get postpartum clients and I'm like, do you really need me? Like, you've been posting all these like outings and adventures and you look amazing. And like, maybe they won't need me, but they hired me before they had the baby. So like, and I get there and it is not the case. And so it's like so much pressure for us to keep up and compare with these images that we're seeing. And
absolutely,
one thing that I noticed when I started sharing some of these negative sides, because I do want to say like 2 things can be true.
Yes.
And the pressure to always, I used to like make fun of this, because if I ever complained about my 2-week-old ever, or the experience, people would message me, bombard me with, oh, but you wanted him. And I even had a coworker tell me when like my first week back, you should have kept your legs closed if you weren't ready to be a mother. And like,
no, ma'am.
Comments like this are not helpful. I do not have to preface saying, oh, but I love my baby. Oh, but I love this. Or,
but you have to, or someone's going to come for you.
You can complain about your crappy job or things about your job that are crappy, and you don't have to say, oh, but I'm also so lucky to have a job. I'm like so grateful. No, you just like vent and unload about your negative experience. And I've found when I did share those negative aspects and, being in a place of deep suffering, the people in my virtual world and in my immediate world were not comfortable with my suffering.
No, my gosh, no one is. Oh my gosh, no. It's like when people, when someone dies, like, oh, they're in a better place. Or I remember I had a friend who was a pastor and her son died, and they're like, think about the amazing testimony you're going to have now. I'm like, do you feel like that's helpful to me? People are so uncomfortable with the nitty gritty and the raw. And honestly, you and I just met last week. But my very first podcast on this channel was about gratitude virtue signaling, is literally what it's called.
I listened to it actually this week.
Oh, you did?
I was like, she is my people. Like the toxic positivity and motherhood is like, makes my head explode.
It's crazy because, and so you've listened to it, and hopefully a lot of the people in the family who are listening to this episode are not, but I just, it's crazy to me that I absolutely 100% felt the need that I constantly had to say, like, oh, but I'm so grateful to be a mother. I'm so grateful that I can't, like, if I complain about pumping, because I don't enjoy pumping. It's not fun. It's a hard plastic thing.
Who does enjoy
sucking
it?
On my nipples. It's not great. I am insanely grateful. I have 10 gallons of milk in my freezers downstairs. Like, I'm insanely grateful. I shouldn't have to preface that every time, but somebody who they couldn't chest feed, or their friend couldn't, or whatever, couldn't produce milk. I'm like, well, I'm not, no tea, no shade to you. I'm just like, that's also my truth. But it's so difficult. And I think there's a certain level of, like, some people just don't post the nitty gritty because that's not, like, they have their people who they can talk to individually. And, like, I'm not going to tell this kid I met in 7th grade and haven't seen since my business, and that's fine. But then those of us who do choose to try to share something, you do have to have this caveat of like the disclaimer of, like, just so you know, I'm just going to put that I'm very proud and happy to be a parent, and I'm very lucky that I was able to carry this baby to tournament. And it's like, I have to have the dialogue at the end of, like, please don't come for me when I'm trying to express myself in this time of need. But instead, it's just someone's ready to snap on with either just wait, as we were rounding back to the beginning, or, well, at least you're able to blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And yeah, everybody has a different comfort level with what they're gonna share.
Yeah.
But it just made me realize, like, most of us are not trained in sitting with the suffering and holding space for the suffering of others. And, those of us in the therapy world, even in the therapy world, like even in the physical therapy world, not all physical therapists are comfortable. They want to rush right through the hard topics. Whereas I feel like I probably should have been a mental health therapist, because I embrace it.
Great.
Like, I share it, get it all out. And, like, I'm not going to fix it. I'll just listen. And, picking and choosing where you share those things during that really vulnerable period. You may not be able to share it with your mom, or you may not be able to share it with your partner, because they're not comfortable holding space for you, and seeing someone they love deeply suffer so much. And so that's why having a support group, or I know here LCSW in Houston, she has a free support group every Tuesday at 1. And so if you're listening and you want access to that, it's for moms. And that is a safe space where they are trained to hold your suffering and to hold space for you. And so, look for things like that, or, find a counselor, or find a trusted friend that, can handle it. Because when you are vulnerable, and, I should have created some more boundaries online for myself, but I never really learned how to do that. And so I was getting all of these messages about, like, fixing my baby's sleep. And because that was, like, the contributor to a lot of my stress. And it's like, so much information that you feel like you're drinking from a water hose when you're, new at everything. And it's like, so you try everything and then nothing works. And then, 2 years later, you realize all of that was biologically normal anyway. And so it's like, you kind of have to set boundaries. I talked to one of my Matrescence coaching clients about this recently. We have to purge and set boundaries virtually as much as we have to purge and set boundaries in person when you become a mom.
Couldn't agree more. It's so
because
actually, yes.
everyone has an opinion and everyone has their advice, and it's not all going to resonate with you, and it's not all going to be helpful.
Yes, I do feel like as those of us in like the millennial space, like we're in such a blessed and lucky age where at 3 o'clock in the morning we can Google something and be like, oh, okay, my kid's not going to die. This is a very normal thing. Although to my clients out there, I tell you to stay off Dr. Google, but like, I don't know. You don't have
We're
kids,
all
but just,
guilty of it.
talk to a patient, an actual provider. But there are so many things that are helpful that it's like, oh, okay, this isn't something I need to panic over. Oh, okay, that's good information. Oh, I could try that, whatever it might be. But then we also have this, again, I love what you say, drinking from the fire hose of information. And it's like, how do I get still and find my inner parenting voice? How do I figure out what it is that works for me, for my family, for my child? And my two children are so different, and they're the same biological father, same biological mother. I carried them both on. He was born on his due date. She was born 5 days early. Like I don't have any real mitigating factors, and they are so different. Like I told you this when we met last week, like he would not let me put him down for 12 weeks. She would not sleep in her bassinet. She wanted to sleep by herself in her room the very first night we came home. And it's like, they're the same, they're siblings,
Yeah.
And so not even what works for one works for the other. And so certainly what works for one mother or one parent is not going to work for me. And,
Yes.
and it is being able, like trying to figure out how to get still and how to figure out what does work for you. I also wanted to go back to touch on what you were saying about holding that space as a professional. I remember in grad school at one of my field placements, I was so lucky in field placements to have the most spectacular supervisors. And one of them was like, also listen to me, I just talk, like that's how I talk as a human. But she was like, and I know that that's your natural energy. She's like, you just need to learn to let it breathe. Like I would like to send a message to people who are not mental health professionals, or perhaps the ones who need a reminder, to just let it breathe. Like if your partner comes to you, if you come to your, if your daughter, if your son, if your whomever it is comes to you in a moment of being in the weeds or being blown or just a little, perhaps a tiny bit of upset, right? Just let it breathe. If you don't know what to say, you can even say that. That's okay. But don't go into the judging and the shaming and the blaming and the just waiting and the whatever it is. Just let it breathe. And even say like, I'm so sorry to hear that. How can I help you? Or
Yes.
perhaps, how can I help you is amazing. Perhaps even let me do some research for you, like your Haley did. You've got Haley, like that's not necessarily somebody's job, but oh, hey, may I offer you a suggestion? When I felt that way after I gave birth, this really helped me, but not like you need to do this because this is what worked for me. But letting it breathe is, I think, very helpful for all of us. I'm suggesting that both when you receive information, let that breathe for a minute, take it in. Do I like it? I'm gonna hang on to it. If I don't, I'm letting it go. I'm not taking on that negativity. And then also on the other way too, if someone comes to you with that, let it breathe.
Yeah. I love that so much. And one helpful thing, if you are a support person to someone that's given birth, a partner or a loved one, and they're coming to you and they're sharing their vulnerability and their suffering and they're complaining and venting a little bit about their struggles, you can even just simply ask, are you wanting me to listen? Or are you wanting me to find solutions?
Yes.
And 99% of the time, we're just wanting to, like, I think Glennon talks about this, like her daughter, she's like highly sensitive. And when she was little, she was like always wanting to fix things for her. And she's like, no, I just want to sometimes like sit in my own suffering and like share it out loud and process it with you.
Yep.
And let you hear me and still be upset about it for 5 minutes. And then I'll move on. And I do that with my mom. Poor thing. I call her all the time with my struggles, and she's finally, I'm going to be 36 tomorrow.
Oh, hey, happy early birthday.
So I call her all the time, and she used to try to fix, solve, because that's what moms want to do. And now she's just like, now she's like the opposite. She's like, okay, I hear you. I'm sorry. That sounds hard. Okay, gotta go to Bible study. Bye.
It's like, wait, no, I actually wanted some help. Wait, come back. I love that though. Yeah, I think that's so important to be able to say that. I know it's so hard to watch somebody that you love suffer, and you do want to be able to fix it, which I love that word fix as a therapist. Like, can you fix my child? Can you fix my marriage? Can you fix what it's like now? So yeah, being able to say, like, in addition to letting it breathe, to be able to say, like, are you just needing a shoulder to cry on? Are you just needing a listening ear, or do you actually want some advice? As long as the advice doesn't start with just wait.
Right. And another helpful thing that me and my husband learned in our couples counseling post baby, we like definitely, it's the best investment we've ever invested in both of our relationships. But we learned something really important. When I am overwhelmed, or when I am blown, or when I'm upset, for him to just look at me, his tendency is to want to coach me up, because in a sports mind, and he wants to coach me up to like not do that, or to be better next time, or to be mentally tough. And I'm like, bro, I just need you to like see me. And so whenever he sees me being overwhelmed or having an emotional day, he just acknowledges what he sees.
Yes.
You seem, and just name it. You seem upset. You seem angry. You seem frustrated. And that alone, that advice that we learn in therapy alone has been a game changer for us, because it's
I see you.
You see me, you see me, and I immediately feel better. And then the follow-up question, just saying what you see for partners, is how can I help?
Yes. Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
And it might be like, oh, you can't, or I don't know how you can help, or can you unload the dishwasher, or can you prep a bottle? Like,
right.
I don't want to have to tell you how you can help me.
I was okay. Girl, I was just about to say, and something else that for me, everything you just said, and also one thing for me that I found that I talked to my husband about, and God bless him, he knows it, and hopefully he doesn't mind me sharing our business, but I've said that to him before. Like, what's frustrating to me is that I feel overwhelmed, that everything is my responsibility. So when you come to me and say that I appear to feel some sort of way, because I appreciate too when he doesn't try to tell me how I feel, but like, you don't seem super cheerful. Like, how can I help? Like, okay, but just look around. Like,
yes, take initiative.
Do you see that dryer full of clothes that's done? Do I need to tell, like, right? And God bless him. He's amazing. He's married to a social worker. So we are constantly talking about communication and love language and emotional labor, and so God bless. But yeah, I think that's the thing too, is like, hey, why don't I take the baby, and I'm also going to get this ready, and why don't you maybe go, or whatever it might be that you might be able to help offer a solution. I think that that's something that definitely can be very difficult too as the parent. I don't know if it is with everybody. I find it to be a lot in my experiences individually with my girlfriends and my friends who have partners, and then also with a lot of my clients. Not everyone's experience is the same, but it does kind of seem to be like the birth parent is the one who runs the ship.
Yeah, I have some friends that have unicorn husbands, and they're that are very maternal and nurturing, and anticipate their needs and all of that. But I don't find that in humans that identify as male. I don't find that is the common. And I don't like to generalize, but it just,
I say we're generalizing, and I'm painting with a broad brush, and I'm owning every moment of that. I'm just saying, like, in my experiences.
Yes, in my experience. And so, one thing, another really good book recommendation is Fair Play by Eve Rodsky.
Okay.
And I read the book when we were having these conversations and struggles. And there's also a card game that comes along with it. And it's basically managing the mental load. And it makes it a game. And so you cut out these little cards, or you can buy the cards online. And it's literally 100 different tasks and categories: household tasks, personal, childcare, anything you can imagine that we're usually managing in our brains. And it's all out on the table, literally, figuratively, and literally.
Yes.
And you get to delegate, okay, these are the things that I'm responsible for. And so when we did it, my husband was responsible for his personal hygiene. because he couldn't understand, like, why do you feel like you're overwhelmed? Like, I do stuff too. Like, why do you, I
Of
don't get it.
course. And
And
that's very
so,
valid for his experience, of course.
yes. And so when we played that game, he was responsible for his personal hygiene, meaning he showers.
Of course. Yeah.
He was responsible for being my life coach.
Uh-huh.
Who knew? I learned that day. He
Uh-huh.
also was responsible for our 4-month-old or 6-month-old, however old he was, baby's athletic events and activities.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm so glad that you're coordinating his
Thank
athletic
you.
activities. Great. He's not involved in anything. Okay. He's a baby. And
Yes, he's
so
going to be quite the prolific badminton player. Yes.
when he saw all of the tasks on my plate, he was like, light bulb. Like he just needed to visualize it because, like, me making a list,
Really?
but because we made it a game and it wasn't like attacking, it
Yes.
was kind of like playful. There was no
Yes.
hard feelings about it. And so I was like, is there anything on this table that you would like to take ownership for? And in the book, she talks about you have to be able to conceptualize the task,
Yeah.
you have to be able to execute the task, and you have to be able to complete the task. You can't just conceptualize it and not complete it. You got to do the whole
Yes.
shebang.
I really love that
So,
activity. And I think that's important that you mentioned it too. Like, is coming from a place of where can you meet where you're not defensive, right? Because if you can have that conversation, we've gone off on a tangent into couples therapy. I love it. It's meeting in a place of being not defensive, but in a place of wanting to support your partner, and in so doing, perhaps learning your partner's experience is not. If you can do it, both of you, from a non-finger pointing. I was actually speaking to a client earlier today where something crazy happened and it was a very emotional situation. And he's like, well, I don't want to be mad at her. I don't want to be, and I'm like, you don't have to be mad at her, but you can acknowledge that you had a lot of feelings about it. I don't want to give too many details because it's very specific, but just generally, like, it doesn't have to be someone's fault. Let's be solution focused. I practice in solution focused brief therapy as best as I can. I'm not fluent at the language yet, but I'm working on it. It doesn't need to be finger point, finger point, finger point. You haven't been doing this. It's what would you like to do moving forward? Right? And thank you for acknowledging the past that had been the problem. Sure, but we don't even need to talk about the problem because we're talking about the future. And I think that helps people to be more receptive to these conversations. And instead of coming at it defensively of like, see, you don't do anything. No. I'm just saying, recognize how much I do. And sorry, Chandler Bing, I can't. And then, sorry, I'm never going to pass up a friend's reference. I can't do it. I'm so immature. And then move forward from there. So that was like our little couples therapy moment. And I love it because you do have to co-parent. You do have to live together. And it is so easy to build resentment. So easy because
it's like impossible not to. It's an effort not to. Yeah. I read something one day that it was like having a baby is like throwing a grenade into your healthy relationship.
Sure.
So even if it's like healthy, it's still a huge life altering, everyone is sleep deprived. It's a huge adjustment. Roles are changing, expectations are changing, and your communicated expectations. Here's like another Brene thing that I was reading about in her book. Disappointment is usually the result of non-communicated or uncommunicated expectations.
That's exactly right. Yes, as I say, because it's impossible to be successful if you don't communicate. It's impossible to not build resentment if you are trying to read each other's minds, or it's impossible. The communication piece is.
And so when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to like also be delegating. And so here that would be a great gift to give at a baby shower as well, because then the couple can play the game before the baby comes, and tasks can be delegated even before.
And again, very solution focused, because we haven't even had this baby yet. So I'm not telling you you're not doing it, because neither one of us are doing it yet.
Right.
Great idea.
And so, in our relationship, we don't have any gender roles. Like, you can cook and you can clean as well as I can. Like, you're equally capable, and I work full time, you work full time. Our roles are very equal. But he just didn't know what I was doing, because I was like a little elf doing it when he wasn't home, and like it just magically happened, And so we discovered that like he loves to do grocery shopping. Great, I hate it.
Same. Same. Yeah.
Like he loves to do laundry. Perfect. I
Mhm.
absolutely dread doing laundry. So we
Yes.
actually discovered like there's strengths and weaknesses in even our household management that, he's like, it only takes 5 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, it does. But that 5 minutes on top of making bottles and cleaning bottles and prepping for the next day and all of the things that we have to do in the evening time to get ready is
Mhm.
almost unbearable. And so if you can just do that, it's great. And so I think having those hard conversations in the beginning before you're in the weeds in your relationship is
Yep.
really, really helpful. And I just want to normalize the struggles of new parenthood and
Yes.
in your relationship
Yep.
because and people are like, I remember my family members were like, oh, you have to sleep in the same bed, like you and the baby can't sleep in another bed because that's like an omen for your relationship. And
Oh,
I'm like, okay, well, one of us has to go to work and like, there's no normal for sleep situations for families, like families
preach.
across the world. I remember Googling how do families sleep across the world when I was like a week postpartum, because I was like,
Yeah.
surely I don't have to have this pressure to like all three of us be in the bed or, there's no
Yes.
normal when it comes to that. You do what works for your relationship
Absolutely correct.
and what works for your baby and what works for your sanity. And yeah, I want to normalize like the struggles, and you have to kind of figure it out on your own without judgment of people in your immediate circle.
I think if we could function non-judgmentally, most importantly to ourselves, like preach to everyone self-awareness and non-judgmental, but also just like stop judging each other, it would be so amazing. I will give one quick anecdote on the sleep thing, and then I will promise I will let you go, because again,
I know we could talk forever.
we're gonna have to do sections 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So just go ahead, let's get that on the calendar. No. But yeah, so I remember this is well before we were even trying to have kids. I don't even think we were married yet, but my husband is a gymnast in his sleep. When he rolls over, it is kick, 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 kick that sheet out from underneath of him. And I swear, like you could look at me, I look like I'm in an earthquake, like I'm moving in the bed. Those of you who are just on the podcast can't see me doing this, but those of you who are watching the video, like I'm literally the bed is moving. And he used to always steal the covers. And so we decided like, hey, and also I'm always cold and he's always hot. So like you sleep with a sheet, I'll sleep with a blanket. We'll just lie them underneath or lay them down underneath the comforter and cover them with a comforter, and life will be amazing. And it worked for us. And this woman was just affronted. She was plucked. Oh my gosh, you are not going to survive your relationship. This is, like you said, like an omen. She didn't use the word omen. I can't remember, but it was just like a signifier that our relationship was doomed. And I was like, why is sleep romanticized? Take me back to I Love Lucy. I would love
I
to
know.
twin beds.
Yeah.
I would love it. And it does not have anything to do, like I'm gonna kiss you goodnight and then I'm gonna come sleep over here. It doesn't matter. It does not matter to me. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting how much pressure we put on sleep when without a baby, sleep is so important. I remember when he keeps me up in the middle of the night, I wake up mad at him in the morning.
Oh,
And
live
then
it.
right. And so, and I'm aware at least enough to be able to be like, not truly angry at him because he didn't do it intentionally, but I'm exhausted because he's kept me up a lot of the night. Why then? But by all means, please tell me that I need to stay in the same bed with him, because that's going to ruin my relationship. And then you throw a baby into the mix, which I'm not here to discuss sleep. I am not a sleep expert. I'm not giving advice on sleep. This is my caveat. This is my CYA. I'm not talking about it, but I'm just saying, like, some people do co-sleep. Some people don't co-sleep. Some people sleep all three of you in one bed. Just the mom, I'm not giving suggestions, but I am saying everyone just mind your own dang business.
Yeah. And the pressure that puts on a new mom that is struggling is unbearable. I mean, I tried like 72 different sleep situations because I felt pressure from all these different people having opinions about it. And ultimately we decided on what works for us. And now my 2-year-old calls it mommy's bed and calls the other room daddy's bed, because when you live with someone that snores like a freight train and works odd hours, it's very disruptive. And so, this works for us.
And I have to say, not for one second did I think, oh, Kate's marriage is in trouble. Oh no, the baby thinks what's going to be great is that your child is going to grow up and think that it's completely normal for parents who are madly in love and good partners and good co-parents to sleep in separate rooms sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I just want him to have, like, my son and everyone, but my son especially, to have permission to find ways and to explore ways that are breaking the mold and
Yeah.
that work for him, And
Yeah.
so the shame and the pressure and all of that, just, it has no space in our
Yes.
family.
I
Mhm.
think that is kind of the conclusion of this section of Kate and Meg chat is I think like just do what you need to do what works for you. And we need to throw off society stereotypes and expectations. And we need to be okay with walking in what would have been shameful of talking about mental health or not being the perfect mother and not being, the Duchess of Cambridge, although I adore her, but like, having to come out a day after you've given birth. And she had a team, and God, I'm not coming for her, but like that expectation is there because she's part of the royal family. She had a staff who helped her get there. You don't need to be like that. And that's okay. Right. Like
Yeah.
it's just
And
do what works for you and your family, as long as you are all safe. Why is it any of my business?
yes, I agree. And I think that we could talk about that on episode number 2, the whole outsourcing piece and the staff piece.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I would love to go into more detail on that because, yeah, sometimes you're comparing yourself to someone that has a whole staff but doesn't disclose that they have a whole staff. So,
I
yeah.
mean, look, money makes a difference. We talk about privilege, and I have a lot of it, but I don't have a lot of money, and I certainly don't have someone doing my hair and makeup. So like, and that's fine. And that's super, super fine. And all of the other things. Yes, I'm not even going to go into it. We're going to talk about it in episode 2.
Yeah,
I have it written down. Kate, I can't thank you enough. What a treat for me. I've just enjoyed myself. Like, this is
me
wonderful.
too.
know
I
the
feel like
family.
I've been listening to Glennon. I have the same energy that I get and the same feeling I get when I listen to a new episode of Glennon and Abby.
Do not make me cry. That is like I can't take a compliment like that. I encourage people to take compliments. That's just amazing. So I'm going to accept it so graciously as much as I can. I'm going to literally cry. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I want to know, Kate, I want people to come find you. Where can the family find you on Instagram? On what's your website? Plug everything, plug it away.
Yeah. So my Instagram is Enso Mama, ENSO Mama, MAMA. And if you're curious about the name, I'd love to talk about it because there's a meaning behind it. And then for the website, it's just ensomama.org, O-R-G. And you can actually book a discovery call. It's free if you want to know more or figure out if there are ways that I can help support your family.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I've already literally got a list of topics for our next one. I'm going to put all of that information in the show notes as well as your book recommendations. Maybe I should start making guests do that too. Like, come prepared with a list of book club. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I love that when podcasts, do share that. Yeah. Cause I always go back and look at the show notes.
Well, that's how I also find a lot of podcasts too. So when Glennon tells me to do something, I usually go and do it. Same with Brene. And again, I know that, they function in a place from their views as, white cis women, but that I'm a white cis woman. So I do relate to that. I think they operate outside of that too, but I love being able to hear recommendations. I think that's so helpful. And I'm going to go and get some of these. I love the fair play. And I love, I'm just going to say it again, baby shower mental health fund. Genius, chef's kiss, amazing. So Kate, thank you so much for your time. We're going to end it here, and everyone be prepared for the next one. It's coming.
Stay tuned. Have a good night.
Stay tuned.